Hello, it's Paul Valencia with the Clark County Today Sports Podcast that we don't like the name, but we're going to get a better name eventually. Cale Piland is here. Tony Liberatore is here. And the world famous Filomon Afenegus. No, I did it wrong, didn't I? No, Filomon Afenegus.
Yes. Yeah, you got everything right except for the world famous.
Yeah, world famous. Well, world famous in our world because all the guy does is win, win, win. Soccer coach, Columbia River girls soccer. And so he's going to be here talking about winning ways, and he's got an incredible resume. His team, his program, incredible, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And then later we're going to get what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk high school football state championships in Husky Stadium. Just the feedback we've received from, maybe Tony's heard from other people or Cale has heard, and I got some good stuff from that. And we're going to talk a little bit of high school basketball is here. We have to talk Ohtani and not the Mariners, and then these guys will probably make fun of my Raiders for losing a game 3-0. Hey, soccer score,
right? Yeah.
And then we at the end of this,
Oakland Raiders FC. Is that right?
So at the end of this, we are going to go into a debate about Christmas music because one of us loves a song that another of us absolutely hates. So we're going to get into that too.
All right.
as well. But so to remind you all, I'm Paul Valencia from Clark County Today. I'm just a sports writer who's been around forever, so I know a little bit about some stuff. Tony is the associate principal at Fort Vancouver High School and former AD at Columbia River. And Cale is the athletic director for all of Evergreen Public Schools. I love saying that. It makes it seem much
just
bigger.
Like you're a movie promo or something every week when you do that.
Sunday, all Evergreen Public Schools.
But let me set this up. Before we start asking you questions, Philly, about how great you are. How great are you? No, but what is it? It's 7 consecutive Final Four appearances. Does that sound about right?
Correct.
Yeah. So state championship in 2022, in 2019, 2016, out of those 7, and then your third place this year.
Correct.
And of course, league rival Ridgefield got the best of you in that game, in the semifinals, and then won it all. So the league is incredible, all that stuff. But 7 years in a row to the state Final Four, and then you also won a state championship in 2012. Is that correct? So four with the girl. So I just wanted to put that out there, Tony. You've known Philly forever. I'll let you take over here and start talking to him.
Well, just a couple of we set this up about talking about winning ways, and I thought about this when we and Coach, you can obviously respond to this, but I think what I'd want you to talk about is just how you've been able to set up an intentional culture by teaching soccer. So, and again, 7 straight Final Fours in the toughest league in the state of maybe any sport. So if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So first off, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So I will say that I always tell our players this, is that success is no accident, especially sustained success. Like there are certain things that you have to do consistently over a prolonged period of time in order to be successful. And so, honestly, back in my teaching life, one of the biggest blessings that I had the privilege of taking on at Geyser Middle School was being a leadership teacher. And when you're new to the district, they're like, you're going to teach PE, but you got to also teach leadership. Yeah. And I had no idea, in my mind, I had an idea of what leadership was, but through my time there, I really got to do a lot of a growth in that area. And it really helped me in my coaching world. And so, number one, like you're saying, Tony, it really does come down to intentionality. And while we were figuring it out and building it, there were some stumbles along the way. But on this side of it, I can clearly look back and see some of the intentional things that we have done for a long time as a program. And so I have what I like to call my 6 C's of coaching. And these are the things that we stick throughout the course of the season. And so for example, it does start with culture. It's a big buzzword out there. You got to have a great culture, but how do you build a great culture? And so for me, it really is the 6 C's. It's do you care about your players? How do you like convey that. Your core values, like what are the standards that you're going to have? You have players coming from all different team structures, all different family structures. Like what are the core values in your program? Your communication is critically important. How do you confront problems? How do you build chemistry within your group? And then the last C is coaching. Like coaching does matter, and it does help with culture when your players know that they're in good hands when it comes to on the field decisions. So, there are some systems and things that we have set up in each of those areas, but that has been a bulk of kind of how we try to strive to build a program that has sustained success.
How long have you been a teacher with Vancouver schools? I mean, roughly.
Yeah, this will be. I feel so old now. This will be year 17.
Year 17, and Cale is going to ask you as an athletic director, what's it like to have a teacher be a head coach as well? I mean, we know that it's in a lot of the sports, it's not always teachers anymore, just because supply, demand, or whatever. Yeah. But what's it like to have a teacher?
I mean, it's hugely advantageous. Not to say that we have coaches who are not teachers who do a fantastic job, but when we're in the business of education-based athletics, character-based athletics, and it's a very different mentality in the club world. Which Philly, you see, I mean, soccer, obviously club soccer is huge. So you have kids that live and play in that world. And what we do within high school athletics has to be different. And having a teacher, I've always said, especially when I was a building AD and we were looking at hiring a head coach, and your principal's involved in that hiring process, and you want a teacher and you want to get that teacher in the building, right? And so some people have a perception that, well, they're just a coach, so they can't be a great teacher. And my argument back was always, no, they're the same skill set. If you're a great teacher, you can be a great coach. And if you're a great coach, you should be a great teacher. So great coaches who aren't great teachers, that's kind of a choice. They're choosing not to be great teachers because it's the same skill set.
Interesting. And so how much, Philly, has teaching helped you become a better coach, and maybe vice versa?
Yeah, I would echo the same thing. Like, it's been very instrumental and help shaping the way I coach and vice versa. And I've picked up some things from coaching that have helped me in my teaching world as well too. But I think one of the biggest things as well too is in my 17 years, kids are ever evolving. Society's ever evolving. Kids are ever evolving. And as a teacher, like, you get a front row seat to see that and adjust your practices in your teaching world. And you just inevitably adjust your practices in your coaching world as well too. And so, for me, it has been really, really great being a teacher, and has definitely helped me in my coaching world. And my coaching world has also helped me in my teaching life as well too.
Tony, got more?
No, I was just one anecdote that I remember working with Coach, and this was actually on the boys team, and you talked about how you used the 6 C's and being able to openly communicate. That the boys championship year in 2018, there were probably 2 or 3 boys that after lunch were challenging is a good word. They thought they had kind of a open schedule. But I just remember, right?
What did they go to Union under Piland's watch? I'm sorry.
Yes,
wow.
That's right.
No, but it was just, and you weren't on River, you're teaching at Geyser, so you're not at River campus. And, I just said, hey, let me help you. Let's figure something out. And you would just say, I got it. And so and as an AD, that's what you want the head coach to be able to do. And it didn't take a week, and I'd have to track the kids down and do all that. You're just I'll get it. And it was done.
Yeah, and that's where it takes a village. And thankfully at the time, and still to this day, we just have an awesome coaching staff. And so I think part of being the head of a program is it's hard because a lot of times we tend to be control freaks. But at that point in time, I had some amazing assistant coaches, Matt, who was in the building at the time as a para, just being able to utilize them. And then we were able to set up study halls and, being able to support those boys as best we could because of the team of coaches that we had. And so the success that we've had in the program goes far beyond just me. It was the coaching staff, it was the administration, even the teachers have been awesome to work with at River, over my time there.
I think you said one of the C's was communication and stuff. In our podcast, we've talked about coaches and parents and their expectations and how it's driving some coaches out of it. Many years ago, Al Aldridge won a state championship on a Saturday in girls basketball, and on Monday, he was in the AD's office with a parent upset about playing time in the state championship. They just won. And more recently, we've had some really good coaches who have gone on some long playoff runs in basketball, and parents aren't happy with them. My perception of you is that just everyone loves you. I mean, all you do is win, win, win. No, I know, but no, but seriously, though, I mean, I imagine you have these issues with parents and players too, where you have to make tough decisions, and not everyone loves it. But I know you have the backing of your athletic administration. But how do you handle that? How do you handle that part of the communication when you have to make a tough call on somebody?
Oh boy. So, I mean, it really does come down to intentionality, right? And in the communication piece, there are the players, right, who I think a lot of coaches, for the most part, do a pretty good job communicating with players. Then there's also the parents. And I will say that, I work with a bunch of coaches and working with a bunch of coaches, like where the breakdown tends to happen is the communication with the parents. And so a practice that I have gotten into probably about 7 or 8 years ago is pretty much every Sunday I send a weekly email out, and I'm pretty honest in that weekly email. Like, we are playing Ridgefield on Tuesday, and the playing time is going to be really, really tight. Like, there is going to be a very tight rotation. At the varsity level, the goal is to try to win league. And so our goal as a program is to not necessarily get players in every game, but get players at the varsity level time over the course of the whole season. And so, I really believe that 95% of problems can be avoided, but it does take that proactive communication. And so with the players, though, there has to be some work there as well, too, in helping them to solve any sort of frustrations they may have as a result of playing time. And so we all encourage players to come talk to us. And so part of our communication value is giving players the opportunity to communicate with us. And so we'll do it in a couple of different ways. One of the things is we'll send out a weekly survey every Monday, especially early in the year when we're figuring out the starting lineups, and there's a lot of feelings about that. And we just simply ask them, like, how are you doing? And for whatever reason, especially with this generation of kids, they feel very comfortable putting it in text form, but not necessarily comfortable, like, telling you. As much as we want them to come to us, and that's a great life skill, not everybody is necessarily there yet. And so when we get that, then I see that, and whatever coach is closest with that player, we'll have them go and talk to them, and then we support them along the way. So the communication is not necessarily just coaches to players and parents. It's also opening up avenues for them to communicate with us as well, too. And so, we have a leadership team, and the leadership team has a way of communicating with us. And I always ask my leadership team, okay, this is a new year. What does this team need from me? Like, do they need me to be more direct about playing time? Sometimes I can kind of create a really competitive, cutthroat environment. Like, do they need that? Do you guys need that more direct? Or do you guys want it more like if a person is in a specific situation, I have an individual conversation with them, and you just kind of let the dialogue go and just giving them a voice into what that team needs. And so those are some of the intentional things that we do that just kind of help. So I'll be honest with you, I haven't gotten a complaint about playing time in probably about 5 years.
Wow. I'm going to take that last phone call, by the way. Yeah. That might have been, I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's got to be a record, right? I mean, it's Cale, Tony, you guys have dealt with parents your whole career in a number of things.
Yes, that's
as a reporter who's heard it all, again, from very successful coaches, that's shocking to me what you just said, that you have not. I mean, that tells me that it works. Your emails work. Your constant communication works. But it almost seems like, is that too simple? Cale?
Well,
Tony?
I think, and Philly and I have talked about this. Like, it's is it because of the winning and the communication, or is it the like which? And the winning helps. Let's be honest, right?
I'm not going to negate the absolute.
Right,
100%,
and
it does help. But Cale and I,
it still happens.
We've seen winning
does.
coaches. I bet Cale's had his share. He won a state title. He went to the semifinals. Went to the championship game in football.
Yeah.
The most, and he still got a bunch of crap.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far, but winning doesn't winning can tend to mask issues.
Yes.
It's harder for a parent to have issues within the program when that's happening. But as Philly's communicated so well, communication it's key. It's absolutely key, because I would always tell parents, look, I can only put 11 on the field. So you may be upset that your son isn't on the field, but for me to put him on the field, I got to take somebody else off of the field. And so your motivation around the 11 you're putting on the field, those are the best they're going to give us the best chance to have success on the field on that given situation. And so you can't take that. In fact, my wife used to say, she had heard this from a colleague, that telling parents, well, yeah, we can talk playing time, but the people in that meeting are going to be me, you, your player, the player you think your son or daughter should be playing over, and their parent, and we're all going to sit down, and you can explain to them why you think your athlete should be playing over their athlete, and that won't go well.
I want to give Lori a shout out. She is also a varsity coach, or was for volleyball. She retired recently, resigned. She's too young to retire.
She stepped away from coaching.
But either way, my point is
new opportunities.
She is also a coach who's been in that conversation with parents. So but no, I'm fascinated. I love your email, your weekly email to basically the parents or the team that says, here's the expectations for this week. And what's it like playing in this league, by the way? See, Hawkinson, you and Ridgefield seem to make it to state every year. I think you had 4 teams from the league make it to state, right? Because did R.A. Long make it this year?
Yeah, R.A. Long made it this year.
So 4 of the 16 from the 2A GSHL, and at least 3 won in the first round, if not all 4.
All 4 of us.
Yeah, so made it to the final 8. And I still remember a couple of years ago, or maybe it was last year, Hawkinson was the 16 seed and beat the 1 seed. Yeah. And so it's just what's it like playing in the toughest league in Washington?
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like, I wouldn't be the coach that I am today without playing in this league. I mean, like, you are just being tested all the time. And we have a lot of great coaches in the league, and they're leveling up. And so it just motivates you to level up in the off season. And so, we've had some coaches come and go, but even the coaches that are coming in, we've had some really good coaches, and I've learned a lot playing against them, and I've had to adjust things that we have done. And so, it's that saying, iron sharpens iron. Yeah. And so it's uncomfortable, but that's where the growth happens. Right. And so our program has been outside of our comfort zone for so long. And it's been really helpful. And very humbly, I will just say that there have been many years where we battle through league, and then we get to playoffs, and it feels more comfortable. Mm-hmm. And so I'd rather have it that way than being in a conference where it becomes not so challenging, and then you're not prepared for the postseason. So it's been great for all of us. I would argue that Hawkinson's benefited from it, Ridgefield, R.A. Long. We've all benefited from being in this league, and you see it in the postseason. Everybody's battle tested.
Right,
we're all ready to go for postseason.
Well, even the District 4 overall too, right? I mean,
Tumwater, yeah.
Yeah. So this has been great. And by the way, we also are hoping to get Coach Brianne Smedley from Columbia River Volleyball. They're 3-time state champion, 3 in a row. And this actually turned out better because we got more time with you, and then we could do the same thing with Coach Smedley because we want to get her philosophy on things too. Columbia River, and by the way, Columbia River Volleyball also plays in hell of a district and league.
The Spudders are right there too.
The Spudders have finished second in state the last 3 years and won the previous 2 state tournaments. So 5 in a row for the 2A JSHL and volleyball. So we're going to get Coach Smedley in here to get her philosophy on winning ways at a future date. But this has been great to have you here, and you are more than welcome to just stick around as we talk about all the other stuff that we're going to talk about today, and then you can opine too, and make fun of Tony's music choice if you like.
Yeah,
we're going to get to that.
That's enough motivation for me to stick around.
All right, awesome. Cool. I know you do have somewhere to go, but I think right now, we got some time. But let's switch over. Let's stay in fall sports, but let's go to football. We had the state championships held at Husky Stadium. And I called someone who went to all the games. Were there 6 games? 6 championships?
Yep,
6 championship games. And I'll get to that in a second. But I wanted to hear from Cale and Tony, if you've got feedback from your WIAA connections or other athletic directors about what it was like, the experience playing state championships at Husky Stadium. Cale.
I heard nothing but positives. I think the environment, obviously, like Paul, you've mentioned on this podcast a number of times, the intimacy of being in a high school stadium and what that feels like, as opposed to being in a big stadium that's whatever, you're lucky if it's a quarter full or whatever. But the experience those kids get to have, it just makes it feel big time. It's not a regular. It's not just, you're not rolling into a high school stadium and playing it that way. I like I said, everything was positive that I heard from the folks that got to experience that this year.
Right,
Tony, same. It was super cool.
Was
at a direct quote.
Yeah. So I called up our friend Ryland Spencer. Used to be of Cascadia Preps. He moved on to something else. But
a former Juanita Rebel.
That's right.
And it was on the team of the year that somebody was the head coach up there.
Cale, I thought you tried to take that off your resume.
Hey, it's not about the record of that year, Paul. Yeah, we were 2-7.
Yeah.
But those kids were great. Yeah, I love those kids.
2-7. Philly's going over there going 2-7. Who does that? So, anyway, but yes, Ryland. I called up Ryland because I figured he was there, and of course he was there for all 6 games, as he said, freezing his butt off, but he loved it. And one of the games he was out there on the field, on the sideline talking to somebody, and when who did Royal play? I don't remember. But Royal showed up, and they're all just stopped, and they all just started taking pictures. They're in the 70,000 seat stadium with the Pac-12 champions play, the undefeated Pac-12 champions play. And it was the coolest thing in the world for them. And this is before their game. I mean, they're taking pictures of the stadium. And as Ryland told me, that's all he needed to know, that this is the right place. This is the right thing to do. Because I can complain. Me, Paul Valencia, I can complain about the atmosphere, and that, to me, 63,000 empty seats are louder than 7,000 people. And I can't stand that part of it. But it's not about me, a fan or a journalist. It's about the athletes, and the athletes loved it. So if that's who we're trying to serve, then this was great. And Ryland said that, he said maybe parking price was a little high, and some of the concessions were very high. But and
we heard that that was going to be an issue.
Yep, and so that was an issue. But then also, here's something that's really cool, and it's a little shout out to Vancouver Public Schools. We knew that the VPS broadcast, the same broadcast that the 3 of us were on for a game this year, that's student driven. The camera people are students, the director, the people running graphics, the producer, and there's a couple adult technical advisors, but for the most part, it's students running the broadcast. They did the broadcast for all the championship games, and Ryland said it looked amazing because he watched it on the big screen at Husky Stadium. And so that was really cool.
That's great.
This is all produced by Vancouver Public School students. Cool. So congratulations on them doing a great thing. He had one interesting thing about it, though, but because they put the whole broadcast on the big screens at Husky Stadium, that included replays. So fans could watch replays of games, which we don't get to see at high school games very often. It's a good thing, but it's also an interesting thing when there's controversial plays, like did a guy step out of bounds? And so the coaches were pointing at this video board, yelling at the officials, he was in bounds and stuff. I think there was a player who was ejected in one of the games for throwing a punch, and that kept getting replayed on the broadcast. nothing that VPS did anything wrong. None of the, that's what you're supposed to do. Show the replays of what's going on and what the announcers are talking about. So, but because it was shown on the stadium, it looked a little weird. And so it just was weird to see it. But it reminded me of, there are some states now that have video replay challenges at their state championship games because those games are being broadcast. And I'm wondering your thoughts. We'll go with Tony first because I know Cale has a lot to say on this, but we're going to go with Tony first.
I think some of those states even the replay would start at semifinal level,
right?
It?
Well, wherever it is where they know the games are being broadcast.
I'd say no for high school.
Okay,
nope. And I'll let Cale expound on that.
Yeah, well, there's actually an amendment up in for the WIAA this year, which I hadn't read through that in detail when we were discussing the amendments the last time we were on. That would, and it's not very clear as to what levels or how the replay would be utilized. It's mainly for clock violations, and I think this stems from the Bellarmine Prep basketball situation in the semifinals last year.
Yes,
right.
That's right. We talked about that.
No, I agree with Tony. I don't believe that instant replay belongs anywhere in high school sports. We play under a certain set of rules all year, and I don't know that it should change just because you're in a state semifinal game or a state championship game. And, officials officiate under a certain set of guidelines and rules too. And that's just a whole, I don't know, that's Pandora's box. And I don't know that we want to open that and start going down that path. And how would a coach know? I mean, how would you even set the challenge situation? I mean, there's just a whole lot of logistics on how you would even do that. But it's high school sports. As I said earlier, it's education-based athletics. And sometimes life isn't fair, right? Sometimes it doesn't go your way. And then that's a teachable moment. And I think we should just focus more on that per se. And, I've been on the end of that. All coaches have been on the end of calls that they would say we're not very good,
right?
But you got to move on, and such is life.
And then for soccer, Philly, since you're here, you get to opine on this too. So on soccer, on the NFHS feed, because I watched Ridgefield's championship match, it's just really just one camera angle from like the fifth, and it's so far away. It's not a broadcast where they have 3, 4, or 5 different cameras. Yeah, it's not tight. But in World Cup soccer or big, they use video review, and it's very controversial. But what would you think if you had a chance? You're the only current head coach in this room. What would you think if you had a chance to challenge something in the semifinals at state?
Yeah, I would just say if it's not been part of the program the whole entire time, then it shouldn't be in the finals or semifinals. But I would also say that I would be open to seeing how it would be outlined. Like if it were for really egregious situations, like maybe like an elbow being thrown or a punch or those types of things. So I think there might be opportunities for limited things to be looked at. But I mean, by and large, I say the game should be played as is.
Yeah, soccer is a very physical sport. A lot of elbows and things are thrown. And really, there's 3 officials out there, but they're so far away. There's only one that's in the middle of the field, so he misses a lot of things, doesn't he? That particular official probably
if we win or we lose.
Yeah.
If we lost, then
he missed a lot of things.
But if we win, then everything was fine.
Anyway,
and I think I think the NFL has done a better job of streamlining it. Mm-hmm. As technology has improved. But again, just football, like the Pac-12, and I know it's so bad, their replay stuff, and even baseball, there are times when it just goes super slow, and like you completely miss that because there's not, what's the baseball term? There's not enough proof or not enough evidence to overturn the call. Overturn the call, right? And I guess the NFL uses that too, but I'm just like,
but to me, when you talk about that in professional sports, it's like reviews should take 30 seconds at most, right? Because if it's called away on the field and it takes you more than 30 seconds to determine whether or not it was right or wrong, well, then give the official the benefit of the doubt that they made the right call.
Right. Good point.
But some of these reviews, holy Toledo.
Right. Let's slow it down to 1/1000.
Yeah.
I think it is interesting though with football. We got at all levels above high school is now video. I mean, even small college has it, I think. Yeah. So I do agree. I don't like that. It's proposed in some states, or it's just whatever whatever game has broadcast, because if your team and my team has a great broadcast, but the other team that's also playing on Friday night across town doesn't, it's not fair to those two teams. So
correct.
So if they only bring it in for championship stuff like state basketball, where all the games are being broadcast somewhere with good good technology, I don't know. And then football, the same thing with either semis or in our state, it would only be state championship games because the semis are still all over the place.
True, that's true.
Different places.
But I would even get to you. I mean, you can now, like, you have people that disagree with the replay official, and sometimes there's another professional. They have the Gene, what's his name? Liberatore, who's there. Yeah. He'll say this is definitely this, and then the replay official will come get and go, no, it was this. And like if you can't even agree, if those guys can't agree, I don't know. I don't know.
All right, so we went off to the side there, but back to Husky Stadium hosting the games. I know this was a 1-year thing for and then they're going to revisit it. So from everything I've heard, I vote. Let's make it happen again, and let's make this become the tradition. What about you, Cale?
Yeah, the WIAA is going to pursue it. We got a new athletic director at the University of Washington. Yep. So it's a matter of whether, kind of what his perception is. But I don't see any way that this is a negative for University of Washington.
Right.
I mean, it's good PR, and you are exposing your campus to a bunch of kids who may never have even seen it before, and so that's a I'm just talking students in general recruiting tool. So yeah, I think we're
some of those Class B students probably never been to Seattle.
True,
some of them
possible.
So that was a heck of a night. But what about you, Tony? What do you think? Your thoughts?
I would love for them to keep it there. And I know when we had Mick here in March or April, whenever that was, he'd also mentioned Lumen. But I think the bigger venues, the better. I mean, I do. I just think it, especially, the Seahawks did help sponsor the games at Husky Stadium.
Right.
I think that's great. Anything to offset that stuff, and
great,
because the Dome, that's out.
Yeah, the Tacoma Dome we know is out. We're never going back to the Tacoma Dome, and
unless they reconfigure the seating, we'll never go back there.
I will yell loudly.
Yeah,
at someone if they ever go to Tacoma Dome. Philly, though, here's your chance to say, why isn't soccer at Husky Stadium? Why isn't no. Now's your chance to rip on football to a bunch of football guys.
No, I'll take the high road.
Thank you, Phil.
So your stadiums are just fine for first state soccer?
Yeah, I mean, first off, player experience is the most important thing. That should be at the forefront of everything. And so, if players love the experience and it is practical or reasonable to do it consistently, then let's do it. I think it's absolutely awesome. And so, that's awesome. I mean, Husky Stadium's iconic, and the memories that will be made there, win or lose, will be with those players forever. So. I think it's awesome.
Yep. I guess my mind has been, I don't know, like I said, my mind has kind of changed. I'm still right about 60,000 empty seats is louder than 7,000 people.
Well,
but
that's why the Tacoma Dome was so perfect for it, just because of the size of the venue.
Because when you got that half full, it was loud and it was loud. It was loud. So it was still it still was an atmosphere. But no, I still I will change my vote, and we'll go with Husky Stadium until the Valencia Bowl is built in Vancouver.
Perfect.
I'll die, and you guys can do a GoFundMe for a new stadium called the Valencia Bowl.
Paul's dream. Yeah, we could sell that.
All right. What's that? Okay. High school basketball is back.
Already in some league games.
Yeah, some league games and going on. And Friday night, so we're recording this on Tuesday. What is this? December 12th. So we'll post this on Wednesday to the 13th. But Friday night, Eastlake is going to Camas. Eastlake girls versus Camas girls. It's a rematch of the 4A championship game from last year. Eastlake got the best of Camas, and so I will always say that this is not a revenge game, though everyone will call it a revenge game, but I think Eastlake doesn't care nearly as much about this game as the game in March. So
probably not.
March.
I think
if Camas wins by 30, Eastlake ain't giving that trophy back.
They'll take a look at their rings and walk out of there, and I think they'll be just fine with that.
It's not to me, it's not revenge, but it's still a nice barometer to see where you are.
Absolutely.
And it's cool that the champions are coming to Camas, and So Friday night, that's the big one in Clark County. But yeah, your thoughts in general on just basketball season.
No, well,
Tony?
Again, just staying with the 4A girls. I know Camas, they were back east the last week.
Yep.
And saw some good national competition, and that is specifically like what you're saying. That is a tune-up for March.
Yep. Cale?
Yeah, no, I'll be at the Evergreen Mountain View boys game tonight. Both teams are off to a pretty good start. The 3A league looking like it's going to be a pretty tight race.
That's a great rivalry too. And then I will be meeting with the Camas. This is, again, we're recording on Tuesday. They are scheduled to fly into PDX Tuesday night. The Camas team, they went to the Washington DC area, and so I'm meeting them on Wednesday, and so I will have a story. I don't know if it'll be this week or next week, just on their trip. The basketball is one thing, and yeah, they went for competition and they got great competition, but they also did the whole tourist thing, and I just think it's kind of cool that a team from Vancouver went to Washington DC and experienced more than just basketball. So look for that on Clark County Today in the future. There's my plug. So, Philly, you don't have to go anywhere for competition. You got the toughest league, but like Camas Papermakers, they went to DC. I think they're in another. I don't know if they're in another tournament in December, but they do have some. They scheduled the champions from Oregon, Clackamas. I think they have 2 games with Clackamas.
Yep.
Clackamas?
Something like that.
So, but yeah, I was just wondering though. I guess you guys do schedule some of the top 4A teams and 3A teams in the area for your non-league schedule. Is that right, Philly?
Yeah. So this year we scheduled Union, and then we also Skyview. That's always a mainstay fixture. And then we also played a SELA from out of conference. But yeah, so like my mindset is always you want to play the hardest teams possible at the very beginning and figure out who you are, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and then you have the whole season to be able to figure out where you're at. And I will say that having been the boys coach, the leagues are different in a sense where the Fort girls are independent, so it frees up some extra non-league games, some preseason games. And so on the boys side, it's a little bit more difficult because with the conference as it is, you don't get any extra games except for a foundation game if you want to use it.
Right.
And so that was always one of the challenges on the boys' side is that we didn't get a chance to go experience and see other teams and get beat up on a little bit. And so it's critically important if you really want to figure out who your team is and evolve to that point where you can really hit your ceiling. You got to be tested and challenged, especially early, so you can make the appropriate changes earlier on in the season. I remember with the boys, we had some really tough games later, and then we were trying to make adjustments later in the season, and at that point, it just becomes really, really difficult to figure out what your ceiling is.
Yeah, you can really get a false sense of security, right? Depending on who you're playing.
Right, 100%.
And then with we'll take the Camas girls, for example. They're going to they've already got a couple losses now, but I think a lot of people think of them as the top 4A team in the state. But come seeding time, we're hoping that the human beings on the seeding committee will go, well, yeah, they got 3 or 4 losses, but look who they played.
Right.
And so they're hoping. But then again, I'm not even sure if Camas cares about their seed right now. They
probably feel like they can play anybody in the state.
Yeah, they
right?
probably So and that's what they're doing these games for. But anyway, good luck to all the basketball teams in Clark County. We'll be talking about you guys a lot more in January and February, I'm sure. Let's see. Now we're moving on we're going to go to okay, hold on one second. We're going to say goodbye to Philly. He's got an appointment. So thank you very much.
Thanks for being here, Philly.
I appreciate it, gentlemen.
Right,
I'm sorry I didn't get to hear about the playlist.
Okay.
Sounds like a very controversial topic.
Just know that but I've got your vote, right? I've got your proxy. I can vote. Yeah, I can do your vote on which.
Knowing Tony and having heard some of his playlists on the bus ride up north, yes, you definitely have my.
Sweet. I got his vote. Sweet. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
See you guys.
Yeah. Well, we'll just keep this rolling. But we're going to go to pro sports now before we get to the Christmas list, right?
Sure. You're the one driving the bus here.
I'm driving the bus
talk
now.
about Shohei?
Yes, because all summer long you guys told me that it was possible.
Anything is possible.
That he'd be American. Yeah, okay. And he's
Listen,
possible that he'd be in Oakland.
I was at the All-Star game when 45,000 Mariner fans at the All-Star game were chanting, "Come to Seattle," every at bat.
Right.
That was cool.
Yep.
Okay. But what we all know that since July, whenever that was, early July to December 12th, Mariners ownership has decided that even though they are, so they've owned the team for 10 years. It's doubled in value, almost. It's up $900 million. We know from independent Forbes list that the Mariners were the most profitable Major League franchise last year.
Wow.
Or not, 2022, not season 2023.
Correct.
And based on what they've done since the World Series ended, they are dumping salary. Because, and this was in the Seattle Times yesterday, Root Sports is now on Xfinity/Comcast top tier. And I mean, I get it. Xfinity's in business, so now you got to subscribe to the top tier. Well, the Seattle Times, Ryan Divish pointed this out, the Mariners beat writer, is that they haven't lost money. They just didn't get all the money didn't project, or it didn't come in as they projected. So there's really no need to be cutting. And that article, the Mariners ownership just needs to be more transparent.
That's 100% correct.
And again, the Shohei thing, at best it was 50-50. I thought the chance that the Mariners, I thought they had was the ties to Ichiro. He is so, worship's not the right word, but maybe it is. He is such high stature in Japanese baseball circles.
Right.
That I thought that, I know that I don't know. I had heard that he had been recruiting a little bit.
Is it possible that Mr. Ohtani said, "I don't want to go to Seattle because I don't even want to have that." It'll be comparison.
That's possible. He doesn't want to be tied to the
doesn't want
franchise.
to be tied to Ichiro. I mean, that's Ichiro's team.
But I mean, if that's I don't know. If that's the case, go to Toronto or go. So I mean, where it was also allegedly tied to. I mean,
over the weekend,
going to the Dodgers. I mean. You're just another Dodger.
It's Kevin Durant going to the Warriors.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but
kinda,
even the Dodgers are one of the most storied franchises in all of Major League Baseball. Right. So if you didn't want to be tied to, I guess being from Japan, I get the Ichiro piece, but you're just you're just one of you're just one of many former Dodgers when you're done.
But to that question, maybe that's what he wants. Yeah. Right? I have people are comparing him to Babe Ruth, early Babe Ruth when he pitched and hit, and Ruth didn't have the pitching chops, obviously, that, it was 100+ years ago. But maybe it is. Like, I'm going to hit behind Betts and Freeman.
Yep.
And I'm one of the guys, and I have a chance to get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And, and listen, as a Mariners fan, I love to rip the Angels. They had Trout and Ohtani. They haven't been to the playoffs.
Right.
Now, Angels fans, and I hear this from Angels fans, I mean, Griffey had 2 playoff appearances.
Wow.
With, it was Griffey, Edgar, Buhner, Randy Johnson. All those guys, 3 of those 4 are Hall of Famers, and the Mariners couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I like ribbing the Angels, but the Mariners didn't do it either. So
no, and I think getting back to your point, Tony, the biggest frustration as a Mariner fan right now is the lack of transparency from ownership. What are you doing? We've heard for years that you once the team was there and it was ready, you were willing to spend. We're there, and you're cutting payroll instead of spending, and you have this window where you have all of this major league controllable starting pitching for cheap. Now is the time to go spend money and build around that, and the fans have responded because the stadium's full. Like people
drew almost 3 million last year.
The stadium's full. So why exactly are you so poor? I don't understand. And so that what I wonder is it the ownership group? Is the ownership group not able to be liquid enough financially to afford certain contracts or afford a certain payroll? And if that's the case, sell the team.
Exactly.
Get out.
And there's been a lot going on in Mariner circles, and Divish, to his credit, in the Seattle Times, I mean, rarely do you see the hometown paper
Go
call him
after
out
them.
like
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah.
But to his point, like an owner owning a pro sport franchise isn't like owning a grocery store or a Home Depot or what, maybe that's not, it's the civic pride with it, right? And Paul, I mean, as a Raiders fan, right? Yep. I was talking about the Raiders the other day with somebody they were basically saying, do you remember when you were a kid and they won 3 titles in 5 seasons?
Yep.
I do remember that, right? Even though I was a kid, but that's how I became a Raiders fan, right? And same thing. They're kind of on a Mariner-esque 1 playoff appearance in 20 years.
Yes.
But no one's calling the Raiders cheap.
True. The NFL is just so different.
Well, it is. But that's my point.
There is a salary floor.
But you and I, Paul, we've talked about this.
Well, there is in baseball now too.
Well, yeah.
But there is how you spend the money, and the Raiders probably haven't done that very well.
Right.
Now the Mariners just don't want to spend the money.
Right? No.
In fact, that's why I'm a much bigger NFL fan than Major League Baseball or even NBA. But the NFL, the Raiders have no one to blame but themselves for being bad because the rules are set up the same as basically every other team.
Right.
I can't go outspend. I can't do, the Raiders can't do what the Dodgers just did. Spend some
right.
So
yes.
that they everybody. So it's all about, and so even though my team is not very good the last 20 years, at least I can't say, I play in the league with the Yankees and the Yankees get all the best players. Well, no, the NFL does it the right way in my opinion, but yeah, it's just different. It's just a different way. And so I like it that way. But no, getting back to Ohtani is I remember saying that people said he might go to Seattle. I'm like, if he wants to go to the playoffs, why would he choose Seattle? I mean, since he was born, I think he was born on July 5th, 1994. I looked that up.
Oh,
and
look at you.
And the Angels have been to the playoffs more times than the Mariners.
Yes.
And they've actually,
and they have a series.
They've gone to a World Series and they've won a World Series. But recent history is the Mariners have won and the Angels have none in recent. But It's not like Seattle is knocking on the door every year. They really aren't. And now maybe that's by picking the Dodgers. Let's face it, we know the Dodgers are going to the playoffs. They're probably going to win the division, but even if they don't win the division, they'll be one of the wild card teams. So he's going to the playoffs next year as long as he stays healthy.
Well, I was going to say the only thing that undoes franchises like the Dodgers is when the injury bug hits, and then now you've got these bloated contracts for players who can't play anymore, and that becomes a bit of an albatross.
Their pitching staff got beat up last year.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, they were beat up last year, and so
but they still got money since he's deferring. They can go out and buy more pitching.
By the way, I saw an article. I think it was The Athletic, and then ESPN reported it too, but. There's nothing in the CBA that says that you can't defer the money. So I don't.
Yeah, and I was wondering that too because that was my question to you guys. And
we're wondering.
Will the Players Association will
they allow it?
Yeah.
And I think they have to allow it. I'm not sure the way that article that I read it made it sound like if the player is cool with it.
And look on Twitter, I can't remember the date now, but it's Happy Bobby Bonilla Day.
Yes.
Right in the baseball circles because he gets his $1.1 million check from the Mets, who he hasn't suited up for in 25 years.
I think he's got one more year of that. I think
Something
it's
like that.
coming up. Yeah. So good. But I got to tell you, I put this on Twitter. It was my favorite tweet of the day. I don't even remember who it did, but it was like the Oakland A's offered Ohtani $1 a year for the next 700 million years, and I thought that's the A's. Yeah, I know I know that's a fake. I know that's fake. I don't need to know that was I know that was parody, but dang it, that was so fun.
That fits.
All right, so from fun to serious stuff now. We got to talk Christmas music list, right?
Christmas playlist.
Did I miss something else before we get to the Christmas playlist?
So.
Okay, no. All right. So, all right, Tony. Our
longest podcast is going to be with Christmas playlist. Our longest episode.
I will say this so Tony. If you don't know Tony, he's a really nice guy. Everyone loves him, right? Do we all agree everyone loves Tony?
I don't know anybody who doesn't like Tony.
Yeah. So
thank you.
Yes.
We'll see. After this, we'll see.
So he sent us his Spotify Christmas music list, and it was what a wonderful thing to do. I've never thought of sending mine to anybody, and I just think seriously that was a nice thing to do because I love Christmas music, and I love it when is it K103 starts on like November 15th or whatever, and they go so and now I think Charlie FM has Christmas music all the way till Christmas, and I'm into that stuff, so I like it, but there was one song on that list that I just cannot stand, and I love Sir Paul McCartney. I appreciate him, but I just think Linda wrote this one. Your thoughts,
okay.
Tony?
So, well, okay. I have a couple of thoughts. So, some more context. It was in 99 or 2000. I started burning CDs.
Okay.
Playlist, like the old school, not even really old school, but kind of
old
new school.
Did you
I
make,
didn't do cassettes.
Did you make cassette tapes as a teenager?
I did make mixed tapes as a teenager, but not Christmas playlists. So I just like, oh, hey, this is cool. You can burn a CD, and like, oh, what's this Napster thing? I'll put music on here.
Just admitted to a felony, by the way. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, Metallica. That was me too. And I love Metallica.
Along with 99% of the rest of the population.
3 years ago, I worked with some young teachers. I included a couple on the CD, and they looked at me like, what is this? Like, I don't have a CD player anymore. I mean, they were nice about it, and like, well, okay, I can actually make a playlist and send it out that way.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I've always got advice from, whether it was Paul Valencia or my wife and friends, it's like, you have to, if you're going to send this to 100+ people, you got to make it just can't be Tony music, right? You got to make it as broad as possible. Now, Paul McCartney, like, I am a Beatles nut.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, it's interesting because I wouldn't be surprised if Linda wrote some of that. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, and it's funny because one of the assistant coaches at Camas who I work with at Fort, Mike Dillman, he said the exact same thing you did. He says, "Why is that song on this playlist?" No, and I'll be honest. Like, I
love Dillman.
Of all the Christmas playlists I've made since 2000 or 99, whatever, I had never put the Beatles when they were a group. They would do these Beatles fan club singles, and you can find them now digitally. It's just a 2-minute Christmas song that they wrote in 35 seconds, right? I've never included any Beatles. I'd never included this Paul McCartney song. And this year, why I included it is that I was reading, I can't remember if it was on Substack or something, but it was voted one of the top 5 pop Christmas songs. I'm like, hey, I don't think I've ever put that on a playlist.
Okay. Well, that's great story. All I know, I just love hating on that song. That's all okay. I do.
Because the ones that Dillman asked me, and I said I can't do the Mariah Carey song.
Okay, so I don't mind that song,
and I can't do that one.
Okay, but it's just overplayed. But I don't mind that one. But here we go. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. Right, that's the name of this.
That is wonderful Christmas time, but he says that over and over.
Oh yeah. So, but when we got the list, I did send out in our text and I didn't name the song. I just said there's one song that is not only a horrible Christmas song, it's one of the worst songs ever produced for any season ever of all time. And Tony then knew what song I was talking about. And so that's my case. I didn't even mention the song and he knew exactly. So I asked Cale for a vote and he said he's going to hear the arguments. And so Cale, what is your vote on? Is it a good song or is it, which would be a horrible opinion, or is it the worst song ever?
I have to say this. I obviously knew that Christmas song and everybody knows that song. Prior to getting, and I have to say, Paul's reaction was pretty visceral.
It was his very rarely is he like that.
Yes, his hatred for that song was jumping out of my phone. I'm like, wait. I know this song, but what? And so I started looking it up, and it is a fairly controversial song. It is either one of the people think it's awesome, or people think it is just excrement, right? So I have to say, then I feel like I'm one of the minority because I'm kind of in the middle. I can take that song or leave it. So I don't know. There are some songs where I would have been like, yeah, I absolutely hate that song. But Paul, I gotta say, I don't hate that song. I don't hate it.
But we did have a kumbaya moment, or we did all, when the Ducks lost.
Yes.
Well,
when the Ducks lost in the Pac-12 championship game, I did text out that I forgive you, Tony, because all is right in the world when the Ducks are not in the playoff.
Except then you realized after the selection committee made their selection that you would have preferred them to have won and then get left out.
That would have been better if the Ducks had won the game and then were left out.
Yeah, you weren't happy that the Huskies won.
I am.
It was just anti-Duck.
I am Mr. Positive Paul in most things, but not that song, and certainly not the Oregon Ducks. So the dark side comes over.
On any of those Christmases, I've never done the Mariah. What's her song called?
Oh, gosh.
Or the Wham song.
Oh, the Wham song is incredible. Last Christmas?
Yeah, can't do that one.
Oh, my God.
See,
it's Wham, but it's also George.
It is All I Want for Christmas
All I Want for Christmas is You. Beautiful song. It's nice. Yeah. But no, the Wham version is the best version, too. And George Michael, how he produced that song. Oh, how he uses his voice as an instrument.
Do I not get any congratulations for including the Misfits on there?
Yeah.
One of the greatest punk bands of all time. And they have a holiday album.
Yeah, that's
the
funny.
Misfits.
And it's funny because my man, Prince, the greatest musician who's ever lived, Mozart, all those people, they all bow down to Prince. But he has one Christmas song that you guys have never heard of, or never heard.
And I was going to ask you.
It is an absolute, the lyrics are it's so down. It's about someone who died 7 years ago and he can't get over it. And she died on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day.
There's an uplifter.
Yeah, exactly. There is a reason why.
Simply happy.
A terrible Christmas time.
Exactly. I will never say I would never listen to a Prince song, but it might be an acquired taste. I've only heard it a couple times. It's never on the radio, probably because of what I just said. Yeah. And so no, there is no
fan club thing. Is it on an album?
I don't even know. And I'm a Prince guy, and I don't even know where it is. I did listen to it a little bit just this week to prepare for this, and it's like, okay, well, at least Paul McCartney got paid.
Well, okay, and I was looked up. Cale looked up something. He still gets roughly, on average, and again, Wikipedia, and I'd have to look at the reference, $400,000 a year from licensing that song.
That is great. That's good for him.
Right? I mean, he's already a billionaire.
Yeah, Prince's estate is not making any money on his one Christmas song that was dreadfully dark.
Deferred money right there, baby.
Right, exactly. So congratulations. But yeah, I will say this. This is funny. People ask me what my favorite of the Christmas songs are. So I am not a humongous Bruce Springsteen guy. I loved his 80s stuff or whatever. I like Bruce Springsteen. I don't love him. I'm not going to go spend hundreds of dollars to go see him play every time he goes. And this sounds silly, but people ask me what's my favorite Bruce Springsteen song. It's his version of Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
That is a great version.
It is just great, and you got
it's happy.
It's happy. It's just fun, and Clarence and the sax and everything. It just
Santa gonna bring him a new saxophone.
Yeah, exactly. I'm getting good, but I mean, music is supposed to, especially in Christmas music, it's supposed to bring us joy, right? And it just. That's a great word for it. I love hearing that version more than any of the other versions.
But simply having a wonderful Christmas time brings you no joy.
Simply, Paul McCartney's no. And then I will give you guys one here's a guilty pleasure of mine. You don't hear it very often, but it's one of my favorite ones, and you guys can laugh at me. It's called Christmas Rapping, but the waitresses, it's like, I can't remember how it goes, but something like
that. Look that up. I don't know that off the top of my head
either.
Merry Christmas, but I think I'll pass this year or this time or something like that. I can't remember how it goes, but if you look up Christmas Rapping, that's my guilty pleasure. A lot of people don't like that one, but that one I like.
I'll look that up. So maybe that's next year's.
And then as far as like spiritual or whatever, Oh Holy Night.
Sure.
That's the top one. But
so we go downtown Portland every year and do the tree, and we go to Jake's for dinner, and we go to a Blazer game. We do that kind of as a family. Mm-hmm. And the first year we did that, for some reason, I don't know if it was my wife or my daughter who had picked up the album, but Sia has a Christmas album.
Really?
And there's some good songs on that. So, but that's a Piland family tradition when we're driving to downtown Portland. That's the album we got to listen to.
You're unstoppable.
Yeah, pretty much, yes.
Yeah. I still love Vince Guaraldi, the Snoopy Charlie Brown Peanuts.
Yes.
That's solid.
That goes all the time.
That is solid. Yep, it's a great one. No, but again, I do listen to, and it's weird. I mean, I know we can listen to Christmas music anytime, but it's different when a station starts playing it, and it's like, so I know K103 in our area, and then Charlie does it too. Yep. So
the other one I got to put, Leslie Odom Jr. has two albums, and
I have his first one.
They're
That's
fantastic.
really good.
They're both really
Those
good.
are really good.
See, there we go. See, we can all agree. Yeah. But
this was the classic Beatles argument, by the way.
In a wonderful Christmas time.
It was the classic Beatles argument.
It is such a
post-Beatles argument.
It is such a terrible song. It's so terrible. All right, I think. What have we got? Is there anything else we
I think
got?
we're good.
I think we're good.
So we'll start up again in January.
People stopped listening about 20 minutes ago.
Exactly.
So.
And Tony,
no, they didn't.
You're still part of the club, Tony, even without. And thank you for sending the playlist. That was
welcome.
nice of you. All right, we'll chat with you probably in 2024.
Yeah.
Take care, everybody.